Adam Sandler in basketball, what could go wrong?
Wait, this is how I win.
Hey guys, welcome back to the video, and this movie is my spoiler-free review of Netflix's newest movie, Hustle. A washed-up basketball scout discovers a phenomenal streetball player while in Spain and sees the prospect as his opportunity to get back into the NBA. Before we get into videos new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, notifications on, so you don't miss any time I upload a video or I go live. Both wasting more time. Let's get right into it. So, starting it off with the good of Hustle. Overall, I think that the acting in this movie was pretty good, especially for a lot of NBA players just playing themselves. A lot of times it feels like some people that are playing themselves are just trying to do too much. But this movie really feels like all the NBA players are themselves. It doesn't feel like it's anything too forced. Obviously, other than our main character who is an actual NBA player, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have any acting experience outside of this movie, but he is phenomenal. There are massive emotional sequences. There are some great moments between Adam Sandler and our other guy. I'm not going to keep repeating his name, but his name is Juancho Hernan Gomez. That's the actual NBA player's name, and he plays the character Bo Cruz, and he is just awesome in this movie. I didn't even know what this movie was really about when I was going into it. I didn't watch any trailers, and he thoroughly surprised me. Adam Sandler, as always, is just great. But along with that, the entirety of the cast is actually really, really good. Again, we have so many NBA players here in the mix, but we also have our fair share of professional actors, and I think everything meshes so well. And that's one thing I'll point out about this movie is everything feels like it comes together perfectly. I will talk about this a little bit later when I talk about the writing and stuff like that, but I definitely feel like everything in this film, it takes its time and builds up, and I think the cast is part of that. Over time, we get introduced to a lot more cast members, and some of them stick around, some of them are only there for a little bit, but you can definitely tell who is there to stay, and the people that are there to stay are actually really, really good. But moving to the story of this film, I think that this story is as basic as it can get for a motivational movie. It's a foreign player, a guy wants to train the player so he has a chance in the NBA, and we all in the beginning of this movie are established of knowing that this player is good enough to be in the NBA. It's just that the scouts and everyone else has to believe in him and watch him play really good because Adam Sandler's character is hyping him up so much, and I think that really works here. Again, it's a very basic story, but I think everything blends together really well, and I just want to skip around on my list. This wasn't next up on my list, but now that I'm talking about it, I think this is such an integral part to our story, and honestly kind of exploring the story and allowing for different routes to be taken within this film, and that is just the inclusion of basketball games in this movie. There aren't like big NBA spectacle games going on. There's like one or two, if I'm not mistaken, or technically one full one, but with that being said, there are still great inclusions of games, whether it's street ball games, whether it's the camera work in the street ball games. I will be talking about the cinematography later because it is absolutely spectacular, but the inclusion of basketball and how they play the games within this one movie, it all just clicks together really well. And I wasn't expecting that really because I haven't seen too many motivational sports movies. They're just not my type of movies, but this one, though I think it has some issues in the motivational isms, if that makes sense, which I'll get into later in this video, I do think that the basketball plays a good role in this movie. I don't think it's just forced in there so you can get NBA players in there, cameo. It actually feels like there's a game going on. It doesn't feel like the movie is halted, they throw a basketball around for a little bit, and then they go back to everything else. It feels like the basketball game itself is integral to this plot. With that also comes like the music choices in this movie, and overall just the emotions that they're trying to draw out of you. And I think that the music overall in this movie, I don't have any like specific song, but I think that everything that they had in this film really matched up with the tones and the emotions. Speaking of emotions, this film wasn't as emotional as I thought it would be. Like, I thought I was going to be like crying for this character by the end of this movie based on the way that they were kind of building him up and stuff like that. And kind of, I knew like, okay, this is a motivational movie, so they have to tear him down eventually to rebuild him back up. And they did that. They had their classic motivational movieisms and they had those tropes, but I didn't seem to feel anything. But I'll get into that a little bit later. I do want to talk about the emotional scenes between Bo Cruz and his family, where you are introduced to Bo Cruz, which is our main character's family at one point, and it is some of the most emotional scenes I've seen in a while. But now I want to get to the bad of this movie, and this kind of does stem off the emotional side of everything, just because when you get to the motivationalisms of this movie, it doesn't really click in my opinion. What I mean by this is, like, in the beginning of the movie, movie, I'm super excited. Like, you kind of have these fresh set of characters. You're seeing a bunch of NBA players, and they're all acting. Like a lot of them are playing themselves towards the end of the movie, but a lot of these players are playing themselves. And you're like, okay, I see where this is going. And then we get introduced to Bo Cruz. We get introduced to all of these different side pieces. They bring them all together. But about halfway through the movie, I kind of realized that I wasn't feeling any emotion, and that's what this movie's point is. It is a motivational movie telling us the story of these characters, and I never really got to that point. I never got to the point where I was like, oh, I feel really bad for this guy. I mean, I felt bad in the beginning of the movie when we're first introduced to him, but other than that, towards the end of this movie, we had our resolution. We had a little bit of a move around and stuff like that, and everything, it fits into the story really well, but I didn't feel anything from it, and I felt like that's what the intent of this movie was. But the biggest and only other issue that I have with this movie has to be the pacing. I definitely feel like, again, the beginning, it works really well. The end, it works really well. They really wrap everything up with a nice bow on it. And then you have to get to that middle part. That middle part is very, very draggy. It drags along a lot. You have a lot of different plot points and a few writing flaws here and there that really impact this movie at its core. And I think the biggest reason for that is just small little side plots that I didn't care enough about. This movie comes in at an hour and 48-ish minutes. It's somewhere above or below an hour 50, under 2 hours. It is a fairly short movie, but the second act of it really drags on, and this is where you get those motivationalisms, where you get he's training to become better and to prove himself and stuff like that. So maybe since I wasn't as invested in those moments, that's why I didn't feel that emotional connection to this entire story. But overall, Netflix's Hustle is still a good movie, and if you're into these motivational type of movies, I definitely recommend checking it out because it does have a good cast. It has great acting. I think the story is well worth your time, and the basketball is implemented super well. Overall, I'm going to give Netflix's Hustle a solid 7.5 out of 10. Again, I don't think this is a must-watch of the year, but if you're into these types of movies, definitely check this one out. It'll be on Netflix on June 8th. If you've seen or you want to check out Netflix's Hustle, let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.